Let me know if you can see my full screen right now.
I see that.
Yes, we can.
Yes,
Yes, you can see it.
Now, how do I minimize this thing? Okay, I can move it over here. Great. So for those that joined late, welcome to the meeting. This is our very first chapter for this new book. It's called Living with Purpose by Mr. David Bruce. So I'll be facilitating this first chapter, and then we need to determine who's going to volunteer to facilitate the next chapter. So let me go ahead and go over the book selection survey result that we submitted last week. Here is the result of the vote for the survey. As you can see here, this is the ranking, and based on the ranking and the number of votes, we end up with serving a higher purpose by Mr. David Bruce as the number one. Coming in second is essentially the early teaching of the master at 26. And then third is the study on the secret doctrine. So that is the tally for the survey. In terms of the book itself, for those that do not have a copy of the book yet, I recommend going over to Questbook. They actually have a 40% off everything sale right now. So you could literally order the book there and apply the coupon code Quest40 into your shopping cart, and they will give you that discount. So essentially, if you go to the website for Questbook, just go ahead and it's on the main website. You could see the book itself as part of the top header when you scroll through. If you add that book to the shopping cart and you go up to your shopping cart, click on the shopping cart, you should be able to go into your shopping cart, and right here, this is where you actually enter the coupon code. Quest40, hit apply coupon, and then it will reflect it right away, and then you go through the normal checkout process. So in terms of the folks that will be participating, how many people have not ordered the book, and how many should we go ahead and order the book so that we have extra copy for everyone that will be participating? Let me go ahead and I guess stop sharing. Could I get the feedback on who's still needing a book?
I do. This is Elena.
Okay. So do you want to order by yourself, or do you want us to go ahead and order for you and then come in one batch order? Actually, it's easier during this time, probably easier for folks to order themselves. But I would like to order actually for the lodge and so on, just in case people join the study group later on. So we will be ordering a few extra copies as well.
I'll order myself.
Okay.
And that's Elena.
So, Triet, I have 2 copies, and I'm willing to give one to the library.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So while we are on back on the Zoom meeting, do we have a volunteer to go ahead and take on the next chapter?
I can do chapter 3.
Okay, so you down for chapter 3?
Yes.
Great. Okay, well, we don't have to make a decision now. Just send me an email and let me know if you're willing to do the next chapter, chapter 2, and then I will put it down. Okay, so let's go ahead. Yeah.
Triet. It's not as if chapter 2 is a very long chapter.
Oh, it is.
I don't know whether you want to split into 2 or just 1.
Actually, I haven't read chapter 2, so that's why I don't know. If it is rather long, then we could split it up.
Well, it's just 11 pages, so maybe it's fine, or 12. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't have to make the decision now. Just let me know, and then I will react accordingly.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to sharing my presentation. Okay. So for me, in choosing this book, I believe is easy to read because that's just lots of essay, short essay. They're really brief and concise. Is really inspirational, and encourage a lot of group participation because he provides lots of provocative questions directly within the chapter itself. And then also there's a lot of sharing of the life story and the best practice on how to approach these issues. So that's my personal take in terms of why we would choose this book. So let me go ahead and try to do this poll. Let me know if you see that poll showing up on your side. For those of you that voted for it, go ahead and respond. Okay, so the result is 60% say that John recommended it.
Okay.
40% is by our TSA National Secretary. 40% it was written by someone that is contemporary and reachable, we could communicate with in case we have some sort of questions. And then 20% is just short and easy to read. So I'm going to go ahead and end the polling.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
So the reason I recommended is that it covers a lot of topics, very broad. It covers almost the secret doctrine, the voice of the silence, light on the path, spiritual practices, reincarnation. So it's a very broad coverage of the theosophical topics. So that was my reason for recommending that book. So hopefully by the end of that book, we shall know a lot about theosophy.
Yes, and I agree completely with you as well. And I can see in there that he tried to be very diplomatic, I should say, because there are material that he could have used, but he didn't. He chosen explicitly not to use in terms of trying to maintain the diplomacy. You know, I can see that he had lots of knowledge, and it's very useful for us to obtain that knowledge and his learning. Okay, so let me go ahead and go back to the presentation. So this is the information about Mr. David Bruce. He is the education director, and he got promoted to the national secretary of the TSA. He's a third generation lecturer, Theosophist. So instead of me introducing him, I'm going to let this YouTube video use this YouTube video to try to introduce to you Mr. David Bruce, just in case you haven't met him either in person or elsewhere on YouTube. So let me go ahead and pause the presentation and then share the YouTube video.
Promoting Theosophical Community, the Henry S. Olcott Memorial Library.
Jeffrey did not see it.
Okay, let me try to. Okay, let's try this again.
Yeah, we don't see it on the sharing screen.
Don't see anything yet.
Okay, what about now?
Okay.
Yes,
That's it.
we do.
Presents How I Became a Theosophist. I'm Dan Smola, and our guest today is the daring and debonair David Bruce. David, welcome.
You're welcome.
So let's start off with basic information. I know you have a rich background in Theosophy, so give us a little background about how you became a Theosophist when you were first associated with the society.
Well, I thought you were going to ask me my name, and I did bring some prepared.
You're always very
remarks,
prepared.
you
I
know,
see. I know as a code name. I think I saw.
I'm just going to wing it, and yes, I've been a Theosophist for a while. 1985 was when I joined the society, so 27 years.
Wow, 27 years.
I come from a great city on a great lake,
Yeah.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Yeah, it is a great city.
A lot of people wish they lived there.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm driving around Chicago, I wish I was back in Milwaukee.
Yeah. Yeah. So you started there. You started.
I started there. I actually was exposed to Theosophy very early as a child because I was fortunate to have both my mother and father be members of the society, as well as my paternal grandmother.
Wow.
So I'm a third generation Theosophist.
So you grew up literally going to meetings, maybe, and
Not going to meetings, but I would say that particularly my mother exposed me to the ideas, even as a young child. You know how children ask a lot of real life questions, you know, why this, why that? And I never knew it at the time, but when she answered those questions, she was giving me the theosophical view of these basic questions about life and death. I actually started reading the literature because my parents had a library, a nice library of theosophical books. I actually started reading some of the easier literature in about fourth or fifth grade.
okay. So let's back up a second. Let's back up a second because I was still trying to master the shoe tie.
The shoe
in
tie.
third, fourth grade. So, first of all, the first thing you said when your mom.
Well, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because you can actually go back to YouTube and watch the video yourself later on.
If they're well read, if I sense that a more difficult book wouldn't be too daunting, I might recommend The Key to Theosophy or even The Secret Doctrine.
To start with.
Perhaps to
Yeah.
start with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it depends on the
It
audience.
depends on the person or the
Okay.
audience.
Okay. And now a very general question about the future of our society. What would you wish for the future of the Theosophical Society?
Well, the Theosophical Society has been around for well over 100 years, and I hope it does continue. My hope is that future generations of Theosophists will remain true to the basic vision of the society that the founders had. And by the founders, I mean not only people such as H.P. Blavatsky or Colonel Olcott, but the masters who inspired that. So I hope we remain true to that original vision of which has brotherhood at its core. I hope that we do not ever devolve into an organization which concerns itself with just social issues or politics. That would be the death of us, politics. And we've successfully avoided getting involved in politics. I love politics personally, but not this
Not for the
organization,
society.
no. And social issues are fine. You should, people are encouraged to get involved in
But
social issues.
as
But
a
those can
society,
be,
you think it's very important that we
yeah,
stick to.
we have a higher purpose than
Okay,
that. And social issues can be very divisive.
Yeah.
They can,
Yeah.
and what we're all about unity, brotherhood.
Yeah.
So what we have is much more important than those issues. And I hope we never lose our
Sure.
original focus.
Sure. Great answer. Great interview. I can say for sure somebody who embodies service, work ethic, and dignity on a daily basis. It's a pleasure to have you here and to work with you.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed the interview, and now I think I have to go wind the clock in the lobby.
Thank you, David.
Okay, so I'm going to follow up that introduction with the information from the foreword that Michael Gomes actually provide in the book. He actually provided a really long winded foreword, lots of description about the content of the book itself. So I'm going to just read the foreword from the end of the book cover. So as author David Bruce in the exquisite essay, inspiring us to live an active spiritual life, fresh and concise, he ranged in theme from living with purpose, spiritual practice, and digital distraction to reincarnation, the human condition, and advice on book and reading. Free of dogma, he helped the open-minded inquirer find the ultimate meaning for a spiritual searcher. Bruce turned to the voice of the silence and the secret doctrine, two masterpieces by 19th century visionary Theosophist H.P. Pulaski. Reader will enjoy Bruce's clarity on her wisdom about the eternal living truth. Our existence does have a purpose, he affirmed. If we apply the principle we live, if we apply the principle we study to daily life. That way we benefit all humanity as well as ourselves. For as the Theosophists believe, we are all one. Anyone who thinks Theosophy is not practical will find this book a revelation. It presents clear guidelines for spiritual living in the 21st century. And that's from the foreword by Michael Gomes. In terms of the preface that David put together, he explained the origin of this book, essentially from the year 2007 to 2018 as a national secretary of the TSA. Part of his job was to provide a short one-letter form, a concise one-letter form format where he described some sort of introduction to a particular topic for the content. So that's why when you read through these chapters, you will see that everything is compiled into a particular theme or format where the essay themselves are really short and they're meant to be short and concise. And it should be easy and relevant to the reader. So that's why the book itself, I believe, is really easy reading, and it should be clear to anyone that is new to any sort of this subject. We try to introduce the subject, present the material, the issue, and then usually offer some sort of truth or best practices to help you navigate, and then finding out more in detail if the material is not located in the content. So that is the introduction of how the book came about, and then we're gonna jump right into the first chapter. So let me go back to the presentation. Oh, before I continue the presentation, these study groups are meant to be more interactive. So if you do have any question at any point in time, please feel free to jump in and ask. Also, you have any feedback, feel free to provide them as well. They are meant to serve as a more interactive group setting so that we can share our idea. So it's not just me trying to facilitate and present what I feel is the important point. For these study group is meant to be providing shared experience for the entire group. So hopefully I encourage that participation if you have any sort of questions or feedback. When we are in the lodge itself physically, it's easier to do that, but on virtual online like Zoom right here is a bit more challenging to do. But if you have anything that you want to ask, feel free to interrupt me as we go through the presentation, okay? Okay, so the first essay in chapter 1 is about planting the seed, and the major point of truth that he pointed out was we reap what we sow. The example that he gave within the essay itself is our lives like a garden. Our every thought, word, and deed are the seed that sooner or later bear the karmic fruit. Whether we eventually harvest flour or wheat depends on the quality of our actions. So when we sow our seed in the garden of life, how generous are we? Do we settle for the, just the meager display, or do we aim for the pageantry of rich color and breathtaking beauty? In terms of the planting the seed, he offered these quotes from the different places. I'm going to just read through them. Whatever seed each man cultivate will grow into maturity and bear in him their own fruit. That's from Pico della Mirandola, Oration on the Dignity of Man. So kindly act, and thou shalt reap their fruition. That's from Voices of Silence, 135. He which soweth sparingly shall reap also sparingly, and he who soweth bountifully shall reap also bountifully, by St. Paul. 2 Corinthians 9, verse 9, 6. So now we come to this section. I'd like to go ahead and get feedback from you as well. What do you think? What are some of the factors that determine the outcome? And let's see. How do I... Any feedback on this? What are some of the factors that determine the outcome of your...
I'm not so much understanding. What do you mean by factors? Is it because of our, is it like factors equals our actions or thoughts?
The cause. So when you plant the seed, what are the factors, what are the causes, what are the input that determine whether or not the seed will be harvested?
Oh, okay.
So it means like then again the cause can be action or thoughts.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Great. Okay, gotcha. So, but can I ask one question? Okay,
Yes.
if it is the action, but I just had that recently, because I was reacting from the past. How it wasn't consciously like try to put someone into the negative spot, but ended up putting the negative spot. So that means like I am getting back the outcome of what I did, even because I felt really bad and why I couldn't be flexible, you know, and then that like because it was concerning the financial situation. So I think that also later I understood my action, but already I have done it. But already, because I have already done that action, then the outcome will come back, right, to me.
Yes. Yeah, we can act. We can act by physically acting, just going through the motion, or we can act by some sort of emotional or motivation factor, or we can act by some mental factor. So it really depends on when I say what are the factors that determine our action. The outcome is essentially those three components: physically, emotionally, and mentally. Those are the three components that actually correspond to our three bodies, right? Our physical body would do something, and there's certain thing that we do by habit, right? And it could be good or bad, and those good or bad habits will come back to us somehow. So that's why we have our emotional body, and that is driven by motivation, right? You can go through the emotion and do something, but if you're not motivated, you're not going to be doing that much longer, right? So that motivation is the thing that inspire you to take more action from the physical level. But even more important than that is essentially the mental aspect of it. That's why thinking, in terms of the mental aspect, thinking is the most important thing, because with the right thought and thinking, that drive not only the motivation factor, but also the physical factor.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
I have another idea too. You know that we all do something for our life, and we try to do the best, just like you planting the seed. But sometimes at the first moment, when you look at that thing, it's a good thing. So you try to share with your friend, your relative, and later on you find out that it's a bad, it's not good at what you think. Our life is study and learn, so don't ever feel bad what we already did. We need to learn that as a lesson and move on.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank you for reminding of that.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead.
On that, I think that was Vaughn that made the last comment.
Yes.
Yeah. On that note, I was wondering what part karma plays in that, or is that out of context?
No, it's not out of context. It's in context. Karma is the result. So it's what you sow. Karma has no control over what the future is going to be. So the future is how you will act, and that is what the action that we are trying to talk about, right? Because karma, no matter what you do from now on, that karma gonna come to you. It can come to you immediately. It can come to you days from now, months from now, year from now, or not even in this particular lifetime. But it will come back to you because that's the law of nature. There's nothing you can do to change your karma, but there's a lot of things you can do to change your future. And that's
Well, then,
what it's all about.
does that mean like it's already determined as far as karma is concerned? Without getting off track here, what I know you mentioned 3 things to determine the outcome, but ultimately another outcome is already determined because of karma, in a sense. Would that be okay to say that?
Yeah. Okay. So the outcome is the karma, right? That's the result. The factor is the cause. So the factor is the what you do now at this point in time. That's
Okay.
the cause, right?
Okay.
And the result or the outcome is the karma. So it's like the law of physics, right? For every action, there is a opposite reaction, right?
Right.
Karma is essentially the law of physics.
Okay.
When it comes to karma, though, because karma operates not only at the physical level, it operates at the other level as well, right? There's the physical level, then there's the astral level or the emotional level, and then there's a mental level. So that's why it's difficult to explain using just the law of physics, right? Because the law of physics only operate at the physical level. It does not operate at the other level. So, but just think in general, karma is the end result, but it interacts at different level or different realm, essentially. And also for karma to operate and manifest in itself, there is the law of synchronicity. In order for karma to happen, things have to synchronize at a particular point in time with a particular point subject matter, right? So you cannot have, for example, if you sow the seed, but if you didn't provide the right condition, the right soil, the right fertilizer, the right sun, the right temperature, and so on, it cannot sprout.
That's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
I think that's interesting too that you said that, because now I'm thinking that is in each choice you make, that would be what you're gonna reap by certain choices, like you mentioned, quality and stuff.
Can I add one point to that?
Yes.
So with respect to karma, right? It was very nice how the way you put it. Yes, it acts on all 3 levels. First is the physical level, and then the emotional and the mental plane. Now, coming to the example that we started off this discussion with, like, we do something at one point of time and we react to it thinking that, okay, that person was bad or made a bad decision. That's how we are perceiving it. At that point of time, mentally, we are believing that that was false and that was wrong, and you are reacting to it. So it is a honest belief in your system, in your mental plane, you're thinking that that was wrong, or maybe you reacted in a way you didn't really wish to. But later on, we realize, many times we realize later on that whatever the action we performed was not called upon or not valid. Then what happens is we feel a kind of regret and remorse towards that action. Now, how does karma work during this process, right? We make some mistake and then we realize that that was not right. And then Annie Besant in the book Karma says there are two ways that works. The karma that is generated, since you had a thought and you did an action, yes, karma is already created and you will have to reap the benefit for it. But the way it comes back to you can be you can have a say in it. The meaning, how you process that karma after performing that action, you have enough regret and remorse, and you really have the thought process in saying you really honestly are feeling sad for what you did to that person or the way you addressed that person and did that, then that also generates a thought powers in the mental plane. And it kind of acts as a nullifying effect, has a nullifying effect of the effect of that karma coming back to you. That is one way. And the other thing is, if you honestly did some action believing that was the right thing to do, but later on you realize that that was because of your limited vision, you did a wrong action, then you didn't do it in a bad intention. That means you didn't create any mental karma, like, you didn't create in the mental plane, you didn't create that kind of bad karma. It was just a physical action. So when it comes back to you, even though some bad thing happens to you, it doesn't bring you that amount of pain because it was a honest mistake. But if you know you're doing a mistake and then you still go and do it, then that, she says, has a lot more effect because you're doing consciously. You know that, like, beating a dog on the street is bad, but still you enjoy doing it and you're doing it, then that creates a lot of bad karma because you know it is doing is wrong and still you're doing it, right? So that's
that is correct. That is very correct, Vita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vidya. So I think we segue into the second question as well. So do anyone has any other inputs, questions?
This is Reina. I just like to add something to the karma. Karma is like, it's impersonal. It doesn't feel, it's very just. It doesn't care about your feelings or your it doesn't know that. It's just as it's a partial result. And to reverse the the saying, we reap what we sow. I was just thinking this morning, what you want to reap is what you sow. It's like the opposite. Like we reap what we sow is like more passive. The more active form is sow what you want to reap. Basically, if you want to reap banana, then plant a banana. It's not it's a more active form of doing things.
Okay, thank you. So what I also like to add is that we should think of karma as beneficent, in the sense that even if we are going through difficult times, we are learning, and the learning will make us better. So I think that's another way of also looking at karma. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next essay. It's about our divine potential. So how would you articulate the purpose of your human existence? And let me go ahead and pause. Trying to pull up the poll here. Okay, has everyone voted?
Yes.
I did.
I guess I reviewed the answer with the slide already, so. All right, let's go back. So each one of us could articulate why we exist in terms of the purpose of why we exist, why we were placed here in different way. But in terms of theosophy, theosophy say that we're here to discover and realize our divine potential. That's the theosophical worldview. So it's about the epic journey of the reincarnating soul to self-realization. So the example that he gave in this particular essay are the soldier that actually, the firefighter that risking their lives that they perform their duty, teacher and mom tirelessly devoting themselves to the education of the young, doctor and attorney foregoing the practice based on wealthy client, and then instead helping the poor and the underprivileged. And of course, during this time, we know that there are lots of doctors and nurses and staff that are in the medical community that are risking their lives as well. So these are not saints, but they are ordinary people who have found great meaning and purpose in living for something bigger than their personal self. And in discovering that the greatest joy in life is not to take for oneself, but to give to others. So the voice of the silent actually mentioned to live to benefit mankind. That is the simple answer to this particular questions. Anyone has any other thoughts about this? Okay. If not, I'm going to move on to the next essay. So you can see here, this is the typical Maslow hierarchy of need that if you are in business and in the world, you will see this explained in most of the psychology and academics. There is the physical need, the safety, love, esteem, and so on. So all of this is essentially driven by to what the sense of the self gratification and so on. So he mentioned in this particular essay, why are so many distinguished, ambitious, famous, or successful people still feel the profound sense of emptiness, dejected, deflated, or depressed, despite the accomplishment, reward, and the accolade that they receive from their colleagues and so on. So what is it that is missing? What have they overlooked?
This is not my comment, but what Sadhguru said is because they are not inclusive, they became very exclusive. They are so focused on themselves, but not be able to include other people along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Maslow theory is that you try to reach up this level all the way to self-actualization, and even at the level of self-actualization, it's all describing about improving yourself, right? It's focusing on the personal self, and not so much, you know, mankind in general. So that mankind in general at that level is completely different, and that's the critical missing piece that we are talking about. So without a sense of purpose, life is simply a charade, shallow and petty. Fortunate is the man or woman with a sure sense of purpose in life, of being part of something bigger and grander than the personal self. So the title of this particular short essay is essentially a sure sense of purpose. With, and the truth that he tried to point out in this particular essay is that with or without the spotlight of public recognition, in success or in failure, there's meaning and purpose to your existence. And he also gave the example as well. So the example is with this, you are able to deal with adversity in hard time, and difficulty can be seen as valuable lesson. When you are confronted by the pain and suffering, you somehow find the stamina to prevail. And then if you have gift to share with others, you willingly share them without any sort of personal glory or self-gratification. So now as ever before, the path to discovering your lodestar lie within. Only you can uncover that mystery of your existence. Anyone has? Yeah,
Can
go ahead.
I ask a question? What do you and I guess anybody can answer, what are some of the valuable lessons we are learning during this COVID-19? I mean, the whole of humanity, in a sense, but also individually.
For me, is like in this presentation, it says to actually look into myself so that also be able to relate or have compassionate to others. In one point, I felt very bad. I'm not like nurses or doctors that helping the front line, just being at home. But just being at home is also not contributing to some kind of harm to some people. So that was starting to understand, and like really the aspect of myself I couldn't face or see is what I'm learning.
John, I've learned that we're all in this together. Like it validates our connectivity to each other, no matter how far or how little those actions are. It affects all of us. The universality of what we do is affecting each and everyone. And this is a very evident situation of that case.
Thank you. I mean, one of the Theosophical principles is unity of life. No, we cannot just be separated from other beings, other people, that we are all in together, as you said. Thank you very much.
I would like to add one thought to that. I feel this has been a time where humanity as a whole, we had lost kind of appreciation to nature and climate and like the world when we live in, and now suddenly everybody is like kind of awakened to the possibility that human life is so insignificant and nature has its own way of claiming its way back in, and like we kind of thought, oh man, we can like master all this nature, and we have like stepped on the moon and we are conquering the world kind of. But now like a single cell organism, right, a single cell organism like a virus which doesn't even have a proper cell structure has brought humanity to its knees, right? So we kind of have to if we look at it in a philosophical sense, we see how insignificant we are here and where our ego needs to be checked here as an individual, at an individual level, and also at a humanity level, I feel.
Yeah, thank you, Vidya. Actually, the slide on the later chapter, the later essay, actually, not the later chapter, going to explain some of that as well. Okay, so it really doesn't matter what level you are at in terms of the society. You have a purpose, and that purpose matters. And we're going to talk about that in the later slide as well. And explain that no matter, don't think of yourself or your action as insignificant, because it's not. And the thing that we learned from this COVID-19 is that even the person that swept the floor, they are important. Because if they don't sweep the floor and clean that virus, that's gonna be bad for us. So I'm gonna cover that in the later essays as well. So every single one of us, no matter where we are in society, is like a spoke in the hub of a bicycle. So if one of it breaks, then something gonna go wrong sooner or later. That's how I would describe it. Okay, so the next essay is titled as Yes, but Why? Is there a why behind its ongoing drama of life? What is the right direction that our immortal self had intended for this life or incarnation? Its purpose, the challenges and opportunity. So it mentioned in the essay that at the beginning of every incarnation, the soul get a chance to preview what happened in the life, in this upcoming life. And they literally see, you know, it understand its purpose, it understand the challenges and the opportunity that provided for this particular life that we are incarnating into. However, when we go down, deep down in the physical level, when we actually were born, our physical body lacked or could no longer retain that memory. Mm-hmm. So that memory actually resides somewhere in the higher consciousness. And for some of us, when we intuitively meditate, at some moment we can catch that rare glimpse of it, right? And we can understand our purpose or our direction, what are we supposed to do in this particular lifetime. But that is rare, right? So the majority of us, there are certain folks also, there are other way of taking a glimpse at that direction. And he mentioned that for those people that have a strong inclination, aptitude for a certain line of work, they have a certain talent, for example, the advice of the late Joseph Campbell was to follow your bliss. For example, that he used, the example he used was Mozart. Mozart was luckily born into the family of a musician. So he had the proper environment and the circumstances that provide him, you know, the conditioning that he can mature on, and kind of like what Maslow would call self-actualization. So he can develop that dream, right? What he want to do. However, there are other people in life where that circumstance is not there. And under those circumstances, they can still, it could still tell us something about, you know, what is it that we consider, what we need to consider in terms of obstacle or challenge that are facing us. Maybe it's something that we need to develop, that in terms of our character, we need to improve our virtue, some virtue that we are lacking. And then the last example they give is essentially there are other clues that are apparent by the chains of currents, which are sometimes meaningful synchronicities intended to guide us in a certain direction. So, for example, when I went to college, I didn't really want to graduate a major in computer science. However, things didn't go well. I originally wanted to graduate and major in electrical engineering, but things didn't go well for me in terms of the acceptance into electrical engineering, and then I had to go over to computer science. But that turned out, that door, essentially that event, the way it steered my life is that I now appreciate it a lot more in terms of learning and majoring in computer science than it would be for electrical engineering. So there's something that steering us in the direction that we're supposed to be heading as well. And as we go older, those things we need to reflect upon. And as we reflect upon, we will see that, you know, the interpretation that we have originally, or the intent that we have originally, is no longer valid. And it has worked out a whole lot better than what we originally intend for what we want to do. And then he summed up at the end of this particular essay. I didn't put in the actual ancient Roman proverb that he put in. I just put in the English translation of it. It's essentially saying that each person is the architect of his own fortune.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go on, any feedback or any other question concerning this particular essay? Okay. So I'm going to go on to the next one. Our most valuable possession. That's the name of this particular essay. And the truth that he offered was it's a deep sense of purpose. So if you would ask him what is his most valuable possession, his answer is a deep sense of purpose. And he explained, he go in and explain why. There are those whom purpose in life may be summed up as getting an education, pursuing a career, raising a family, and then achieving some measure of financial security. But the attainment of those lowball goals provide only a limited satisfaction. So there are essentially three types of people that he described in the essay. There is the apostle of materialism. Some of them are well-educated and even brilliant people who doubt that there's any inherent meaning in life and seek to persuade the public that life is nothing more than atoms and molecules. Most of these folks are called atheists. They only believe primarily in science, right? So they don't believe that there's a God. And then there's the second group of people, those that want to believe that life has a meaning and purpose, but they're not really satisfied with that simple assurance from the preacher, for example, that God has a plan for you. Well, God may have a plan for me, but how does sweeping the floor or flipping the burger or stocking the warehouse shelf fit into that plan, right? Well, that's how it was in the past. But during this COVID-19 pandemic, we see that it's important. So even, like I mentioned earlier, even the folks that are sweeping the floor or cleaning the stand and so on, the folk that are flipping the burger or stocking the warehouse, we see now that they have been declared as essential, right? They are essential to our society. If they are shut down, we wouldn't be able to operate. So this COVID-19 actually bring out the best in us. It gives us our sense of purpose, right? And then he talked about, that's where the last group of people, which is the most important, because these are the leader, they having some idea of what God's plan is and how it may unfold. Because they are the people that believe in it and practice it and living it. And then the final conclusion is that in terms of the theosophical worldview is that there is an underlying purpose to our human existence. There is a part of our soul that craves for something substantially more substantial than just our worldly success. So we don't just try to self-actualization. Yes, it's good to have that, but we got to go beyond that. We got to understand that it is our need to benefit mankind that will be the final purpose. Any other feedback, question concerning this particular short essay? Okay, I'm gonna go on to the next one. So, serving a higher purpose. That's the title of this next to the last essay. To have any lasting value, the effort that we invest in our theosophical study need to bear dividend in our daily life. Okay. So in her letter to the 1890 American Convention, H.P. Pulaski actually reminded us that our study of theosophy should ultimately serve a higher purpose than just gratifying our momentary curiosity on some metaphysical point of providing us with a veneer of self-importance when discussing with other arcane subjects. So, she actually saying that what we have, actually, let me back up. There's a section that I didn't fit into the slide, which is he was talking about the second object of the Theosophical Society, which is to study, compare the religion, science, and philosophy, right? And then the third object, which is to study the unexplained law of nature. And we were saying that the second object and the third object will require almost a lifetime, even more than a lifetime, just to learn all of that information. And at the end of it all, what uses it? So, and that's how he lead into this particular point that Madame Pulaski actually reminded us, that unless we study and we practice and we apply and we live it, there's no point to all that study. This is not included in the chapter, but I believe this is relevant. So I include this quote from Light on the Path by C.W. Leibiter. In the introduction on Light of the Path, he actually have this quote, which I really like. Only so far as man live the teaching will he be able to really understand it. If he does not practice it, it will remain a sealed book to him, and he will think of it as unpractical and useless. But any honest effort to live it will at once throw light upon it. Only in that way can this priceless pearl be appreciated. So as with anything in life, if you don't practices, if you don't live it, you can learn and memorize all the information and retain all the information, but it's not useful to anyone. And that's called like a bookworm.
Cool.
Agree.
So the final analysis and summary that we provide was the serious student would do well to ask, how have my study made me more peaceful and loving person? And to what extent have I become a force for good in the world? Okay. Any question, feedback on this particular essay?
Yes, so this is Elena. It did help me. I learned the lesson that I can actually wish good health and blessings on those who hate me, for example, at work, and it actually worked. We're not so much enemies anymore. We speak to each other, we interact, sometimes even help one another. It worked.
Thank you for sharing your experience with us. Yeah, it really do. So what you put out, it's the law of karma again. What you put out, you will get it back, no matter when, but you will definitely get it back. Any other input? Okay, so I'm going to proceed to the last essay. And this is, it's called Never Too Late. And this is from the Voice of the Silence. And the truth that he pointed out is each failure is a success. And each sincere attempt wins its reward in time. Which basically what we've been saying all along is no matter, what you do, as long as you do your duty for the benefit of mankind, sooner or later you will have that reward. Just trust that that's the law. So we must go on from where we are. Some will think, actually this, let me clarify. Clara Cott, a popular Theosophical speaker and writer, he mentioned this passage, which I believe sum it up. So that's why I just literally cut and pasted here, verbatim. So I'm going to read it out to you. We must go on from where we are. Some will think that they're too old because life is almost gone for them. What a mistaken idea. In the life of the spirit, there is no age, no space, no time as we understand them. A last year of a life, even the last few months, can give direction, begin a new road that continue beyond the confine of death and lead into the next incarnation. And then you can see here, I put in this picture. It's not in, it has nothing to do with the essay, by the way. I just find that it's helpful. So that's why I put it in. The pessimists complain about the wind, the optimists expect it to change, the realists adjust the sail. So no matter where you are in life, no matter how difficult it is, at that certain point in life where things are getting harder, physically, emotionally, mentally, and so on. Because as we age, those things are in the decline, right? trying to find a way to adjust yourself. It's the attitude that matters. Attitude. Like I say in the last chapter of the last book that we studied, attitude determines your altitude. So that's what it's all about. So he summed it up at the end of this particular essay, is that life is a continuum. The body ages, but the spirit is timeless. The spirit is eternal. Our reincarnating ego doesn't care what happened at the end of our life. What it cares about is the experience that we gain from it. So no matter, do you gain the experience at the beginning of your life, the middle of your life, or the end of your life, the experience is what matters. So he encouraged us to, if you haven't started doing something, do it. It doesn't matter. It's never too late to start doing it. And that is the end of the chapter 1. So anyone has any feedback on this particular essay?
Yeah, Triet.
Yes.
Good work. I wanted to ask, I mean, we Theosophists are realists and also optimistic. So what other words can we use to describe Theosophists? I know we shouldn't be pessimistic, but are there other words, adjectives, apart from being optimistic and realist, that we can use to describe most Theosophists?
Well, I certainly agree that the Theosophists, if they truly live their life as they study Theosophy, they are optimistic and they are realists. The other word I would say for realist is reasonable. Being reasonable. Don't be too extreme. As the Buddha teaches us, the middle road. The middle road is where we can safely tread our path, right? So be reasonable is the word I would say. I'd like to hear if anyone else has any other word that, as John has asked.
I would say contented.
Who was that?
That's me, Jamshid.
Oh, thanks, Jamshid. Contended or contend?
Content.
Okay. Okay. To what level, though?
Well, with what you have and not complaining about not having things.
Oh, grateful. You're looking for the word grateful. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, because I was a bit puzzled when you said content. The problem with human being is human beings are never content. That's why I can tell.
Yes.
If you find a human that is truly content, then I don't know if they're still living.
Right.
Grateful, I believe, is the word that you're looking for.
Correct.
Because being discontent drive us, that motivate us to solve the problem or improve the process is what Theosophy would say, right?
Right.
When we see something that is wrong with the process, with our lives and so on, we're not content with that. We are never content with that. And that's what is driving, that's the motivation factor that drive us to improve that particular process, to improve the life.
Yes, good point.
I found out this is a very good beginning of the books. It gives us a very basic, a very good foundation to study, to go on. And like the very last one say that, you know, it's never too late. So we need to keep move on and keep study. And remember one thing, that we all want, and we need to live for others. And with that thought, it never go wrong.
Thank you, Van. Anyone else? Let's see who's online. I'm gonna stop my sharing and see who's online. So that wrap up our chapter 1 study. Vidya or Reina or Tomoko, do you have any input, or Ronald? Any last minute questions?
No, I'm good. Thank you. It was a nice session. It's nice connecting with you guys after a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, always glad to see you and Rena back.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. It's actually a good platform. You know, you can still be in the house and keeping people, you know, safe, and being able to have this interaction. I like it.
Yeah, true.
Does anyone know how Anne is doing?